The letter opener left her hand at 47 feet per second. It buried itself 3 inches deep in the gunman's forearm before he understood that the quiet woman behind the circulation desk had just turned his armed robbery into the worst mistake of his life. 2 minutes earlier, she'd been stamping library cards. Now she was explaining to 3 armed men why they should have chosen a different building, a different city, a different profession entirely. Welcome to Quiet Tales Studio. Before we tell you about Autumn Blake, the librarian whose reading glasses hid the deadliest aim in military history, tell us what city you're watching from tonight. And if you're ready to see what happens when predators pick the wrong quiet woman, hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't about books. This is about what happens when someone's past catches up with other people's present. Autumn Blake had been the head librarian at Riverside Public Library for 6 years. At 31, she possessed the kind of understated beauty that made people feel immediately comfortable. Warm hazel eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. A smile that reached those eyes when she helped a child find the perfect book. Hands that moved with gentle precision, whether shelving novels or brewing the coffee that kept the small staff running. The library was her sanctuary. Built in 1923, it retained the classical architecture that made visitors lower their voices instinctively. Tall windows that cast golden light across mahogany reading tables, shelves that stretched to 14-foot ceilings, alcoves where someone could disappear into a book and forget the world existed. It was exactly the kind of place where someone might choose to hide from a past they'd earned the right to leave behind. Autumn had chosen Riverside carefully. Population 24,000, low crime rate, the kind of small city where the most excitement was the annual Harvest Festival, and people still left their doors unlocked. The library was downtown, across from the courthouse 2 blocks from the police station. Safe, predictable, quiet. She'd been running from noise for 6 years, the kind of noise that came from rifle reports echoing across Afghan mountains. The kind that came from radio chatter coordinating movements that would decide whether 20 soldiers came home alive. The kind that came from a scope sight finding its target at distances that shouldn't have been possible, but were, when failure meant watching good people die. Before she was Autumn Blake, librarian, she had been Captain Autumn Cross, United States Army, 75th Ranger Regiment, sniper. The first woman to complete the Army's elite sniper school. Holder of 7 combat commendations and 1 record that remained classified but was whispered about in circles where marksmanship was measured in impossible shots made under impossible conditions. 1,847 meters, moving target, crosswind, 1 shot. The Taliban commander never knew what hit him. But that was another life, another woman, another war. The woman who stamped library cards and organized poetry readings had left all of that behind the day she walked away from her military career and chose silence over gunfire, books over battles. Until Tuesday afternoon, when 3 men made the mistake of choosing her library for an armed robbery. It was 3:15 p.m. when they walked through the front doors. Peak hours, after school, before dinner, when working parents dropped their kids off for homework help while they ran errands. The library held maybe 20 people, mothers with toddlers in the children's section, high school students at the computer terminals, elderly patrons browsing the new releases. The first man through the door was tall, lean, wearing a black hoodie pulled low over his face. He moved with the nervous energy of someone running on adrenaline and bad decisions. Behind him came 2 others. One built like a linebacker, the other shorter but carrying himself with the cocky swagger of someone who thought a gun made him invincible. Autumn noticed them immediately, the way she'd been trained to notice threats before they announced themselves. Their clothing was wrong for the weather, heavy jackets on a mild October day. Their eyes moved wrong, scanning for exits, cameras, resistance instead of books. Their hands stayed in their pockets in a way that suggested they were gripping something more dangerous than library cards. She was behind the circulation desk, helping elderly Mrs. Patterson find a cookbook, when the tall one cleared his throat and spoke loud enough for the entire library to hear. Everybody listen up. She was behind the circulation desk. This is a robbery, helping elderly Mrs. Patterson find a cookbook. The words hit the quiet library like a gunshot. When the tall one cleared his throat and spoke loud enough for the entire library to hear. Children looked up from picture books. Everybody listen up. Students froze at their keyboards. The words hit the quiet library like a gunshot. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Children looked up from picture books. High school students froze at their keyboards. "Nobody moves, nobody gets hurt," the tall one continued, pulling a pistol from his hoodie pocket. It was a .38 revolver, chrome-plated, held in a grip that suggested more familiarity with movies than actual firearms training. "We're here for the cash, and then we're gone." The linebacker had produced his own weapon, a sawed-off shotgun that made Mrs. Patterson gasp and reach for her heart medication. The short one kept his gun concealed, but made sure everyone could see the outline of it pressed against his jacket. "Cash register, lady," the tall one said, pointing his pistol at Autumn. "Open it up, now." Autumn looked at him over her reading glasses, her expression calm, almost curious. She made no move toward the register. "I'm sorry," she said in the same gentle voice she used to remind patrons about late fees, "but this is a library. We don't really keep much cash on hand." The tall one's face flushed red above his hoodie. "Don't play stupid with me. Every business has cash. Register, now." "Of course," Autumn said, her tone still pleasant, accommodating, though I should mention that our daily deposits rarely exceed $40. Most of our transactions are electronic these days, library cards, printing fees, things like that. Behind them, a toddler started crying. His mother pulled him closer, whispering reassurances that everything would be okay. 3 high school students huddled near the computers, phones out, probably texting for help. $40? The linebacker's voice was higher than expected, indignant. "What kind of half-ass score is $40? "The kind you get when you rob a library," Autumn replied reasonably. "Perhaps you gentlemen meant to hit the First National Bank? It's 2 blocks south. Much better cash flow." The short one stepped forward, his swagger faltering slightly. "You think this is funny, lady?" "Not particularly," Autumn said. She removed her reading glasses and set them carefully on the desk. Without them, her hazel eyes seemed somehow different, clearer, more focused, like someone adjusting from reading distance to something much farther away. "I'm simply trying to understand your business model." That's when the tall one made his first mistake. He vaulted over the circulation desk, landing hard on the other side, gun pointed at Autumn's face from 3 feet away. "Listen, librarian," he said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was a threatening whisper. "Maybe we don't get much cash from this place, but you know what? I bet some of these nice families would pay real good money to make sure nothing happens to their kids." Around the library, parents pulled their children closer. An elderly man near the biography section was slowly reaching for his cell phone. 2 college-age women near the romance novels were edging toward the back exit. Autumn noticed all of it. The way people moved when they were scared, the angles and distances, the fact that the short robber had positioned himself where he could see the front door but not the emergency exit. She cataloged it the way she'd once cataloged wind speed and target movement, information to be processed and used. "That's an interesting escalation," she said to the tall robber, still in that same conversational tone. "Armed robbery to kidnapping. That's a significant jump in federal sentencing guidelines." "Shut up," he snapped, pressing the gun closer to her face. "Just shut up and do what I tell you." "Of course," Autumn said. "What would you like me to do?" "Get on your knees, hands behind your head." Autumn tilted her head slightly, as if considering the request. "I'm sorry, but I don't think I'll be doing that." The silence that followed was complete. Even the crying toddler had gone quiet, sensing the shift in the room's energy. "What did you say?" the tall robber asked. "I said I don't think I'll be doing that," Autumn repeated, her voice still gentle, still reasonable. "See, I've been kneeling for 6 years. Kneeling to be invisible, kneeling to be forgotten, kneeling to pretend I'm someone I'm not. And I'm tired of kneeling." She took a step forward. The robber took a step back, suddenly uncertain. "But more importantly," Autumn continued, "you just threatened children. And that's where this stops being about library policy and starts being about something else entirely." The linebacker was getting nervous. "Tommy, what's taking so long?" "Just shoot her, and let's go." "Tommy," Autumn repeated, as if filing the name away. "That's helpful. And you?" She looked at the linebacker. "Should I call you by name too, or would you prefer to remain anonymous in the police report?" "What police report?" the short one asked. "We're gonna be long gone before." That's when Autumn moved. 6 years of civilian life hadn't erased muscle memory burned into her nervous system through 2 combat deployments and training that pushed human reflexes beyond normal limits. Her left hand swept up and out, deflecting Tommy's gun arm while her right hand found his wrist and twisted with surgical precision. The .38 clattered to the floor before Tommy understood what had happened. Her elbow found his solar plexus, her knee found his groin. He folded forward, and her linked hands came down on the back of his neck, dropping him to the floor behind the circulation desk, where library patrons couldn't see the violence that was about to unfold. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. The linebacker was bringing up his shotgun when Autumn's hand found the letter opener on her desk, 8 inches of brass with a point sharp enough to open envelopes and, if necessary, major arteries. It left her hand in a perfect arc and buried itself in the muscle of his forearm. He screamed and dropped the shotgun, staring at the brass handle protruding from his arm like he couldn't understand how it had gotten there. The short robber was pulling his gun when Autumn vaulted over the desk with fluid grace that belonged on a battlefield, not in a library. She hit him low and hard, driving him backward into the biography section where they crashed into a shelf of military histories. Books scattered across the floor, accounts of D-Day, memoirs of Medal of Honor recipients, studies of sniper tactics that Autumn had read and lived and perfected in places where reading about war and fighting one were separated by the thickness of a scope lens. The short robber tried to bring his gun around, but Autumn's hand was already on his wrist, applying pressure to points that made his fingers go numb and useless. The gun fell among the scattered books. "Please don't make me hurt you any more than I already have," she said, her voice still that same gentle librarian tone. "I really don't want to have to explain excessive force to the police." By the time the Riverside Police Department arrived 4 minutes later, they found 3 men zip-tied with the plastic strips Autumn kept in her desk drawer for bundling returned books. The tall one was conscious but dazed. The linebacker was whimpering about his arm. The short one was unconscious, breathing but unlikely to wake up for another hour. "Ma'am?" Officer Janet Creek approached the circulation desk where Autumn had returned to helping Mrs. Patterson find her cookbook. "Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" "Oh no, I'm fine," Autumn said, adjusting her reading glasses, "though I think that gentleman might need stitches." She nodded toward the linebacker. "Letter opener injuries can be tricky." Officer Creek looked around the library, taking in the scattered books, the zip-tied suspects, the 20 witnesses who were staring at their librarian like they'd never seen her before. "Ma'am, can you walk me through what happened here?" "Certainly," Autumn said. 3 men attempted to rob the library. I discouraged them." "Mrs. Patterson, I believe you were looking for something with casseroles?" Mrs. Patterson blinked several times before answering. "Yes, dear, but how did you, where did you learn to do that?" Autumn's smile was warm, genuine, and carried just the slightest hint of something that hadn't been there an hour earlier. "Oh, you picked things up over the years. Now let's find you that cookbook." The investigation took 3 hours. By the time the police finished interviewing witnesses and processing the scene, word had spread through Riverside like wildfire. The story grew, with each telling 3 armed robbers taken down by the librarian, single-handedly, without a weapon. Like something out of an action movie. Detective Ray Morrison, 20-year veteran of the force, pulled Autumn aside as the evidence team finished up. "Ms. Blake, I have to ask, what's your background? Because what you did in there, that wasn't luck." Autumn considered the question, weighing truth against the peaceful life she'd built, measuring revelation against the safety of continued anonymity. "I had some training," she said finally, "before I became a librarian." "What kind of training?" "The kind that teaches you to protect people." Detective Morrison studied her face, noting the way she held herself, the careful precision of her movements, the fact that her hands weren't shaking despite having just fought 3 armed men. "Military?" he asked. "Yes." "Combat?" "Yes." "Sniper?" Autumn was quiet for a long moment, looking around the library that had been her sanctuary, her hiding place, her attempt at a normal life. "Yes," she said quietly. Detective Morrison nodded slowly. "Well, ma'am, I can tell you that those 3 men are going away for a long time. Armed robbery, assault, threats against minors. But I can also tell you that this story is going to get out. People are going to want to know who you really are." "I know," Autumn said. "I've been prepared for that possibility." Any regrets about coming out of retirement? Autumn looked around the library, at Mrs. Patterson finally checking out her cookbook, at the high school students who kept sneaking glances at her like she'd grown a second head, at the toddler who was now giggling as his mother read him a picture book. No, she said, no regrets. The next morning, Autumn arrived at the library to find a line of people waiting outside the doors. Not patrons looking for books, but reporters with cameras, bloggers with questions, and curious residents who wanted to see the librarian, who'd become a local legend overnight. She also found a black sedan parked across the street with government plates and two men in suits who weren't there for library services. The taller agent approached her as she unlocked the front doors. Ms. Blake? Agent David Walsh, FBI, could we have a word? Autumn had been expecting this conversation for 6 years. She'd known that the day she used her skills in public would be the day her carefully constructed civilian life ended. Of course, she said. Would you like to come inside? The library doesn't open for another hour. They sat in her office, surrounded by the books and papers and quiet normalcy she'd built as a barrier against the memory of muzzle flashes and radio chatter and the weight of decisions made at distances measured in death. We know who you are, Agent Walsh said without preamble. Captain Autumn Cross, 75th Rangers, distinguished service record, early retirement under circumstances that remain classified. That's correct. We also know what you did yesterday, and we know that word is going to spread. Social media, news outlets, people with cameras. Your cover is blown. Autumn nodded. She'd spent the night thinking about exactly this scenario. We'd like to offer you a job, Walsh continued. Consulting work. Situations where we need someone with your particular skill set. The kind of situations that don't make the news. I'm a librarian now, Autumn said. You're a sniper who's been hiding in a library, Walsh corrected, and yesterday proved that you can't turn off what you are just by changing what you do. Autumn looked out the window at the reporters, at the curious crowd, at the small city that had given her 6 years of peace and quiet. What kind of situations? She asked. Agent Walsh smiled, the kind where bad people make the mistake of underestimating someone who looks harmless. That afternoon, Autumn Blake stood behind the circulation desk, stamping books and answering questions from patrons who couldn't quite reconcile the woman who'd helped their children with homework with the woman who'd single-handedly stopped 3 armed robbers. She was still wearing her cardigan, still speaking in the same gentle voice, still the librarian they'd known for 6 years. But something had changed. Not in her, but in how people saw her. The elderly patron asking about genealogy resources looked at her with new respect. The teenager seeking help with a research paper kept glancing at her hands like he was trying to imagine them moving with lethal precision. Her phone buzzed with a text from Agent Walsh. First assignment next week, details to follow. Autumn deleted the message and helped a young mother find board books for her toddler, the same toddler who'd been crying during yesterday's excitement. Ms. Blake, the mother asked hesitantly, I just wanted to say thank you for what you did, for keeping everyone safe. Of course, Autumn said, handing over a stack of colorful books. That's what libraries are for, safe spaces for everyone. As the afternoon wore on, Autumn realized that her carefully constructed quiet life hadn't ended yesterday. It had evolved. She was still a librarian. She still loved the smell of old books and the satisfaction of helping people find exactly what they needed. But she was also something else again. Something she'd tried to leave behind but couldn't. Something that the world apparently still needed. Some people are born to organize information. Others are born to eliminate threats. Autumn Blake had spent 6 years trying to be only the first. Now she was ready to be both. The library was still her sanctuary, but it was no longer her hiding place. And somewhere in a government building in Washington, a file marked classified was being updated with new information. Subject has returned to active status. Recommend immediate integration into field operations. The war had followed her home, but this time, she was ready for it. This story was brought to you by Quiet Tales Studio. Here's our question for you. Have you ever underestimated someone based on their appearance or profession only to discover they were capable of extraordinary things? Someone whose quiet exterior hid remarkable strength or skills? Tell us about that moment of revelation in the comments below. And if you believe that heroes come in unexpected forms, subscribe to our channel for more stories about the guardians hiding in plain sight. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. And remember, never judge a book by its cover, or a librarian by her cardigan.